Good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop. And let's see here. There is possibly two names here in the room I don't recognize. At least I don't recognize what their last names. So before we get started here, let me ask if there's anybody who's new to these workshops this morning. Or anybody who's fairly new. And my question is, if you are new, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right. So the workshop introduction is I'll explain what we do in these workshops, and probably more importantly, what we do not do in these workshops. Then I'll explain how the recordings work. All right. So that way, if you ask a question, you'll know how quickly you can get a copy of the recording there to review later. And then lastly, third topic is I'll explain what custom indicators I can install into my machine in case you do have a question about using a custom indicator here with Bloodhound. All right. So if anybody would like to hear that workshop introduction, let me know. So I'd like to get that out of the way first. And let's see here. So going forward, I do have an emailed in question for today to get us started. All right, so there was a screenshot included with the email and some rough description here of what's wanted as well. So I'll use this to get us started here for today. All right, and let's see. All right, so I don't see any takers on the workshop introduction. So with that, let's dive into the first question for today. All right, so here is the written description for today's question here. All right, so basically it's a filter. It's a question about creating a filter that will block signals there, right? So no signals generated, blocking signals under certain conditions, right? So it's basically when the MACD changes direction and starts going in the opposite direction there. So as the screenshot is showing here, right? When the MACD is above zero, but when the MACD starts sloping downwards, right? So above zero, but starts sloping downwards there, no signals, right? Or block signals there, or block the output there. So we also have some other conditions here, some other elements there. So if the ATR is greater than 27, then no trades, right? And also, well, we have an SMA 200, so a slow period moving average there, and so buys if price is above the SMA. And only short signals if price is below the SMA. All right, so we have a couple of elements there to put together. All right. So before we get started here, let me put these indicators on the chart so we can see them. All right, so I have the indicators there. So just give me a moment to kind of get them coordinated. All right, so I think I'm ready to go here. So let's get Bloodhound open next. And the first thing we want to do is input a file name here so all the work gets saved to that file. So let's go to the main menu tab here and just click on save. There we go. And so we'll just put in the date for today's workshop. There. All right, now we're good to go. So we'll tackle the first one here. All right. So this condition, looking at the screenshot, appears to be a two-parter here, right? So we can see we only get a short output here when the MACD is below 0, and a long output when it's above 0 here. So let's create that first. All right, the MACD being above or below 0 there. So that one's going to use the threshold solver. So this is a fairly, I guess, common filtering direction there. All right, so we're just comparing the MACD to the 0 line there. All right, let's move that up there. The input here is going to be the MACD indicator. So open up the indicator selector window. There we go. Let's do a little search for the MACD. And there we go. Select the MACD. I'm just going to use the standards periods there. And the MACD line is already selected, so we can just click OK. Now, in the threshold rules here, right, the default settings are actually what we want here. So if we look at the chart, right, MACD is below the 0 line, and we get a short output. When the MACD is above the 0 line, we get a long output there. And that is the default settings for the threshold rules there. So opening up the rules window, right? Basically, if the MACD is greater than 0, right, we get a long output. If the MACD is less than 0, then we get a short output, right? Pretty basic there. Now if you wanted to do something like maybe make a gap there, so the MACD has to be greater than 1, or the MACD has to be less than -1, right? You can do something like that. So, all right, but let's just put that back to 0, zero that out. There we go. Okay, so that's the MACD above or below the 0 line. So now let's do the filtering here. Asking the question, which is if the MACD starts sloping downward, then remove this output, right? Filter that out. So that is going to be the slope, right? We're just simply looking at the slope of that MACD line. There, let's connect that in. And let's give this a name here, right? MACD slope. There. And for the indicator, let's put the MACD in here. So open up that rules window. There we go. find the MACD. There it is. And again, adjust the settings if necessary there. And we are looking at the MACD line, so that's already selected for us. Click OK. All right. And so here we go. Whenever the MACD is sloping down, we get a short. So in other words, there's no long output there. Right? And when the MACD is sloping up, we get a long. So if we combine these two together, so let's grab an AND node, right? So that's just the MACD line above or below 0. And now let's connect in the MACD slope, and there we go. So now we get an output only when the MACD is sloping upwards, right? But when it's sloping downwards, then there's no output there. And, vice versa, when the MACD is below 0 line, we only get a short output when the MACD is sloping down, but no output when the MACD is sloping up and below the 0 line. All right, so there you go, pretty straightforward. Next, let's add in this ATR condition here. So basically, no trades, or in other words, no signals when the MACD is greater than 27, right? So let's grab another threshold solver, right? So the 27 is our threshold level. So the ATR has to be below 27, for an output to occur. All right, so let's give this a name. So ATR is less than 27. There. All right. Now, when you're building filters like this, you're always setting up the solvers for what you do want. Don't set the solvers up for what you do not want. Right? So the way this is stated, this is something which is what is not wanted, right? So the ATR is not, what's not wanted is when the ATR is more than 27. So when you're building a solver, you have to reverse that. So you have to say, okay, I want trades when the ATR is less than 27. Right, so you notice when I built this solver here, I named it to what we do want. What are you looking for to build a filter or a trade condition, right? So what is wanted is when the ATR is less than 27. There. All right. Now, if you do build it backwards, so if we did build it so that we're looking for when the ATR is more than 27, you can build it that way technically, but what you have to do is use the invert button there, and I'll demonstrate that here in a moment. So the invert actually is not a perfect reversal of what is wanted. That's why it's always better to build a solver for what you do want. And so what we want is, or well, I should say what this trader wants is when the ATR is less than 27, right? So let's put the ATR indicator in here to open that up. And let's see, there's our ATR. All right, we'll just go with the 14 period there. Now in the rules window here, this is where we set up what we do want. All right, so we want the ATR to be less than 27, right? And the way this is phrased, it says more than 27, there's no equal. So I'll say less than and equal to 27, right? Less than and equal. Less than and equal to 27. There we go. All right. Now the ATR is not a trend direction. Right? The ATR doesn't tell you what the trend direction is. So what that means is when you're setting up a solver, you need the long condition and the short condition to match exactly, right? You'll notice both of these say less than or equal to, less than or equal to. And when we do that, right, we get a long and a short output at the same time there. And there we go. So I put the little white line there to denote the 27 threshold level there. And so there we go. So whenever ATR is greater than 27, there's no output. But when it is less than 27, that is what we're looking for. And we get a long and a short output since, again, the ATR is non-directional. Same thing with volume. Volume is non-directional. So you want to make sure that you get a long and a short output when you're building a volume-based condition there, since it's non-directional, right? The MACD is a directional indicator, right? So is your moving averages, so with the MACD and moving averages, 99.9% of the time, you're going to have only a long or only a short. All right, one last condition here, the SMA 200, right? So basically a long output only when price is above the SMA, right? And a short, right? Sells are only allowed when price is below the SMA there. So for that one, right, we're doing a above or below condition. So for that is the classic comparison solver, right? So we're comparing price to the SMA. So is price above or is price below the SMA? All right, so let's change our name here. There we go. All right, so input A is going to be price. So let's change the input type to price. And there we go. We'll just look at let's see here. Yeah, it doesn't say anything specific. So we'll just look at the closing price, right? So if the closing price of the bar is above or below the SMA. And then input B will be the SMA 200. So right, the SMA is the default indicator, so all we have to do is change the period to 200. And we should connect that up to the result node. And there we go. All right. So the close is above, below. Now, so every once in a while, sometimes people will say that they want the whole entire bar, right, the whole candlestick or the whole bar above their moving average, right, or below their moving average, right? So if we wanted to make this a little more restrictive here, conservative, then let's build another one here. So I will copy this and paste it down there. All right, so in this case, instead of just calling it price, let's actually put in the price we're looking at. And for this other one here, instead of price, I'm going to say we want to compare the whole bar to the SMA. There. All right, so if we're comparing the whole bar, if we need the entire bar to be above, well, which price needs to be above? It's going to be the low, right? So if the low is above your moving average, then obviously the entire bar, right? All four prices of the bar are above the moving average. And vice versa, how do you know if a bar is below your moving average? If the high price is below that SMA, right? So all we got to do is for a long, we can just change our price to the low, right? So if the low is above, then we get a long output. And if we're using low for a long output, then we're going to be using the high for a short output. And as we adjust that already, there we go. So any bar that is touching our moving average, there's no output. Right? Yeah, there we go. So we have a bunch of bars consolidating on that SMA, and there's no output. Right? So anyways, I'll just put that aside there. So now the next step here is just connect up these other two conditions to the AND node that we have there. Connect that in, connect that in. Like so. Tighten them up. And, well, yeah, there we go. There we have it. So I was looking at the ATR thinking, why is the MACD below the zero line? But this is the ATR. Okay, so actually this is correct. Yep, MACD is above zero and it's sloping up for a couple of bars. Yep, as price moved up. So there we go. So, yeah, and of course, you know, what was asked, you know, the way this question was phrased, you know, we can see that these are all just filters, right? Just kind of filtering out based on indicators to build a trading direction filter. Yeah, so this trader here, right, would only want to take shorts when the MACD is below zero and sloping down, and only when the ATR is below 27, so the market is not too crazy, right? Too volatile, and of course, yeah, the closing price needs to be below the SMA 200, right? Now, of course, if you look at this, right, here's a couple of bars that are actually touching the SMA there, right? Those two bars are touching. So if I connected this in, there we go. Those two shorts go away. If I connect in the whole bar, right, when you compare the bar to the SMA. So anyways, that was not a part of it, but a little extra bonus there for teaching purposes. All right, so that's it, guys. And let's see, this question was from Melroy, and I'm not sure. I don't see Melroy in the room. Don't. Okay, well, if anybody has any follow-up questions on this, you know, maybe some of you guys have a follow-up question on any of these conditions here, let me know, and I'll get those answered for you. Otherwise, if you have any other questions, you know, about Bloodhound, let me know. All right, guys. So that was the emailed in question that I had to get things started. So the remainder of the workshop is up to you guys to ask your own questions there. Let's see. Well, I do have another question here, but I was really hoping for the screenshot. Sorry. So, yeah. So the trader emailed this in as well, and said that they had an attached screenshot, but there wasn't one. So I was really hoping to get that attached screenshot before I actually address that question here. but I guess if too much time goes by, then I'll take my best guess at what was wanted here. But first, I'm going to give you guys in the room an opportunity there to kind of get your questions in. All right. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in here, so I will um, take my best guess at what this other question here, at the details here for this other question here. All right. So, all right. So here we go. So this is for a short trade, right? So we have a 6 EMA and a 30 EMA. So there we go. We have the 6 and the 30 on the chart, right? So when price retraces back up over the 6 EMA, and let's see if we can find that. There we go. So right here's price moving back up above the 6 EMA. So the bar must be fully above the 6 EMA. Let's see, possibly, yeah, that bar and possibly that bar is fully above, and then goes short on the first reversal down bar. All right, there we go. And I kind of wonder if maybe I should be using a faster moving market here. So let's see here. Let's see what a 10 range looks like. And all right, here we go. So here's the reverse of that. So we have a bar completely below the 6 EMA, and then it reverses up there. All right, we'll use that. Okay. So let's get this open here. All right, let's make a new logic template to build this in. And let's see, what should we call this? All right, so I don't know, something like that. 6 and a 30 EMA pullback. There. All right, so my guess is the 30 EMA is setting the overall trend direction there. So there's a couple of ways we could look at that. We could look at the slope of that. All right, so let's build a slope solver here. All right, so EMA 30 slope. So let's go into the indicator here. And let's go find that EMA. There it is. Put in the 30 period. All right, there's the EMA. Only has one plot, so nothing to select there for the plots. So we can just click OK. All right, there we go. So 30 EMA sloping up. All right, long output, long filter, sloping down, short output, short filter. There we go. We could also, just make sure that the closing price of the bar is above or below the EMA as well. So we'll throw that in there, right? So we'll compare the close to the EMA 30. So input A, that will be prices, right? The type will be prices, not an indicator, but price. There we go. And we'll just look at the closing price. And then input B, that'll be the EMA. So let's plug that in. And let's see, where's our EMA? There's the EMA. And again, put in a 30 period. Click OK. All right. So pretty straightforward there. Also, we could compare the EMA 6 to the EMA 30, make sure the EMA 6 is above. So if you wanted to do that, that probably is not necessary, because if the close is below the EMA 30, right, the EMA 6 will be, it's going to be a little bit lagging there. So actually, yeah, I'll just skip that one. I don't think there's any need to compare the EMA 6 to the 30 if we're comparing price to the EMA 30. So we'll just skip that one. Let's see here. All right, so these two guys will basically be kind of the overall trend filter there. So I'll put those down below. There. All right. And then let's see here. All right, so next, the setup here, right, or the pre-signal bar is we need the bar to be fully below the EMA 6, right, fully below. So because I'm setting this up for a long signal. So I don't have an example of a short, I don't think. There we go. Okay, good. So we do have a short a little bit behind here, but I think a lot of people think in terms of a long entry signal. So let's just mark that right there. All right. So the setup there is we need a bar completely below the EMA 6. All right. So let's grab a comparison solver. And so as was demonstrated in the last question there, right? We'll compare the bar to the EMA 6, right? So how do you know when a bar is below a moving average? Well, the high price is going to be below it, right? And vice versa, right? The low price would be above it, right? Low price is above, that means the whole bar is above. And if the high price is below, then the whole bar is below. All right. So let's see here. But remember, we're setting up for a long signal. So actually, when the high price is below the EMA, we want a long output because we're expecting a long entry signal. All right. So let's see. Input A, we're going to switch this over to prices. So for a long entry signal, we're going to be looking at the high price. So that means for a short, we'll be looking at the opposite price, which will be the low price. And then input B, that's going to be our EMA 6. So let's open this up. There's our EMA. Put in the 6 period. All right, good to go. Click OK. Now, right, so there we go. So when this bar is completely below the EMA 6, we get a short output. That's not what we want. So we need to go into the comparison rules window here, and we need to reverse these conditions here. So instead of being greater than, let's reverse this to less than, and vice versa here, like so. And if we hit apply, there we go. So now when the bar is completely below, now we get a long output, like so. All right, so that is good. And let's see here. Let's connect that up, right? So these are our setups here. And so right there, that's a reversal. And actually, the bar that's below is also the reversal as well here. So what I'm trying to find, well, I guess on a range bar, yeah, this will not happen, but on other bars, other chart types there, right, like a tick chart, a minute chart, volume chart, right, you can see how it's possible for the reversing bar to actually close above the EMA 6, right? So, all right, so keep note of that there. For now, let's just generate that reversing bar condition. So the easy way to identify if a bar is reversing is to use the inflection solver, right? And we're just going to check when price inflects or price reverses. So input, again, the input type is going to be price, and we'll just leave it at the closing price. So there we go. Whenever the bar reverses down, we get a short. Price reverses up, we get a long. Right, there we go. Now, if we connect this in like so, there, we do get, yeah, there we go. We get a bunch of signals here. There we go, there we go, there we go. Right, there. There we go. There. All right, there. Yep, there we go. A bunch of signals. Now let's see here. Let me actually let's change the chart type here. That way I can try and generate a situation where price might actually close above the EMA 6, which if price did close above that EMA 6, then we wouldn't get a signal right there. So let's see here. Let's go with a yeah, let's go with a 30-second chart. And yeah, and so to help me to find that condition that I'm looking for here, I need to disconnect the price reversal here. So that way I'm only seeing the setup. There. All right, well, this isn't a very clean setup here, but technically it'll do. And let's see here. Yeah. All right, so here's our bar. The first bar that's completely above. Price didn't reverse direction there because the close is actually above that. And yeah, it looks like we had price kind of gapped up there and then closed down. So I think, yeah, this would be that reversal bar there. Let's get Bloodhound open. And so the point is, both of these bars, right, are no longer above the EMA 6, right? And so when it's connected up like this, right, we get nothing there. But if we look at the reversal, there we go. So that bar is the reversal, but it's touching. Right, so how do we solve that problem there? And let's see here. All right. So what we're going to do is take the setup here, right? So this AND node is basically, the trend direction and the bar condition, right? The bar being above or below the EMA 6, right? So that's our setup. And then we're going to extend this forward. Let's go to the function nodes, go to the signal extender, connect that in, and there. So I extended this, right? So I took our setup signal and then extended it by 2 bars, so that way we get to this bar, because we know this is the bar, right, that actually does the price reversal, like so. right? So, all right, so let's see here. Let me name this signal extender. There. All right. And now we can grab another AND node, like so, and connect the extended setup into here. And there we go. There. So now let's see if there's any others here. And let's see here. Something else, this is why details matter a lot here. So we do have a short, but on an up bar because technically the closing price did close lower. But some people might say, well, you know what, that's not a down bar. That needs to be a down bar. So, so there's a down bar, and that's a doji. So, if you actually need a down bar, then let's add a bar direction solver as well. So this is basically probably the primary use of the bar direction solver is to, remove signals like this, right? We get a short on an up bar, because technically the close did close down, so price did reverse, but it was still an up bar because we're on the NQ, and as we can see, price just gaps around all the time, right? So this bar closed here, but then it opened like almost looks like a point lower, a point and a half, 6 ticks lower. So this bar opened 6 ticks lower. Yeah, it just kind of shows you how volatile today's markets are. So price gap down 6 ticks and still closed up. So with the bar direction, if we connect that in there, there we go. It got rid of that signal, and it got rid of the signal over here as well, right? Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So this would be our bar that's completely above the EMA, right? And the next bar is where the closing price reversed directions, like so. There. All right, well, I think, yeah, that's kind of as far as I can go with this without more explicit details there. Yeah, so, yeah, again, unfortunately, the screenshot was not attached to the email, so this is all I have to go by. So, all right, well, there's another question down. And so, all right, so if anybody has any follow-up questions, let me know. Or, gentlemen, if you have your own questions, let me know about those as well. All right. Yeah. And let's see here. Yeah, I should name the first question here. All right, guys. Well, I'm just waiting on the next question to come in here. And let's see. Oh, so it does look like we had some more people coming in here. Well, all right. Yeah, so I think I recognize all the names in here. Okay. Well, yeah. So, gentlemen, we're almost at the 1 hour mark. So, wow. I didn't think it would take too long to answer both of those questions. All right. Well, since we're almost at the 1 hour mark, I guess I will start the timer here, and I'll give everybody at least 10 minutes or so to get some more Bloodhound questions in. All right. And if I don't see any more questions within that 10-minute time span, then I'll just assume we're done for the day and wrap it up. All right. But again, as long as the questions keep coming in, the workshop will stay open in order to get all those questions answered. So, all right. So, guys, while I'm waiting on the next question, I'm just going to mute my microphone. All right. All right, let's see here. It looks like Doug has a question. Gets an error. Well, I'm not sure how far I can go with this. Um, hmm. Yeah, Doug, I don't know what a uh, trigger platform action. Yeah, I don't know what a trigger platform action has to do with Bloodhound. I think, yeah, and could not acquire a bar series lock. Um, yeah, Bloodhound doesn't need to lock a bar series. So I think that's just sheer coincidence here. Uh, hmm. Yeah, proceeding without trigger custom event locking. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any experience with um, Bloodhound utilizing any code uh, that what those classes would be used for. Um, yeah, as far as I know, Bloodhound doesn't need to lock a bar series. Uh, yeah. Now the trigger custom event. Um, let's see. I don't think Bloodhound needs to utilize any trigger custom events either. Um, yeah, I think that's Blackbird. Blackbird does need to use trigger custom events, as it's doing all of this internal, like in the order sets. Um, and I think possibly when it's uh, checking money management conditions, because it has to acquire data from NinjaTrader, and NinjaTrader says you have to use custom trigger events because those are multi-threading tasks there. Um, but I don't believe Bloodhound needs to do any of that. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I don't know why that would be, Doug. Mm, yeah, I don't. I have not seen anything like that um, from any other customer. Uh, yeah, any kind of errors like that from any other customers. Um, hmm. The, I guess the general uh, process there that I would go through, hmm, is just um, close out, any extra workspaces that you go have, right? Try and run as few workspaces as possible, and then take or build a list of all the indicators that are on those charts and that you're utilizing in Bloodhound, and or Blackbird. Here's something else. You could possibly have an old instance of Blackbird stuck in NinjaTrader's database, because NinjaTrader does a horrible job of cleaning up old strategies. It doesn't clean its database very well. This has kind of been a running issue with NinjaTrader. I know they have made some changes years ago to try and clean up their database and address other various issues with their database. So my guess is possibly you might have a Blackbird stuck in that database. For some reason, NinjaTrader spins up, or not spins up, but NinjaTrader inspects all of the strategies that it has in its database, and when it inspects them, it actually kind of runs the initialization process of that strategy, and so that can trigger Blackbird and or Raven, to do some to run some code, and if an old and NinjaTrader loves to hold on to old instances and old versions of strategies that might have been run years ago, right? And as I said, NinjaTrader doesn't clean out its own database. So what I would suggest, this might help, but probably if you're in the habit of running Raven or Blackbird or any other strategies, this is probably just a good cleaning protocol to do maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years here. And I can only say how to do it for Raven and Blackbird, but excuse me, hold on. The process is simple. Just shut down all your workspaces, right? Make sure you only have a blank workspace open. I just call mine untitled there, and there's nothing in it. So close all the workspaces there, and then shut down NinjaTrader and uninstall Shark Indicators. Just uninstall Shark Indicators there, and then run NinjaTrader again, and then so when NinjaTrader spins up, it will see it'll I think what's happening is NinjaTrader again always inspects its database, and it will remove any instance of Raven and Blackbird from its database, because it'll see that those strategies no longer exist within NinjaTrader, and so therefore it just wipes them out. So just run NinjaTrader, and then you know what? Just in case, because again, this is a black box that NinjaTrader doesn't tell anybody how it works, but this is just from decades of observation. Actually, what I would do is open up all your workspaces that might have Raven or Blackbird. Open up all those workspaces there, and then I think that will force NinjaTrader to look through its database and reconcile whether there is a Blackbird or Raven associated with that workspace. And if it finds an instance of Raven or Blackbird in its database, it'll then remove it. It'll remove the strategy from its database. Now, the key thing here is, as you have all these workspaces open, make sure you do not save them, because if you had Blackbird on any chart and you save it, right, it's going to, NinjaTrader is going to remove NinjaTrader is going to remove Bloodhound from all your charts because you don't have Bloodhound installed anymore. So you don't want to save your workspace because it'll remove Bloodhound from any chart that you might have had it on. So the purpose here is to trigger NinjaTrader into going through its database and reconciling any strategy that's associated with a workspace. And if it finds Raven or Blackbird, it'll remove it because it's no longer installed, right? Those strategies no longer exist. So it does clean up its database in that respect. And then once you've opened up all your workspaces there, then just close NinjaTrader and make sure you do not save anything. Don't save a single thing. Just close NinjaTrader without saving any of your workspaces there. So the database has nothing to do with saving a workspace. And that should clean up your database there. And then, close NinjaTrader down there. And then with NinjaTrader closed, then you can reinstall the Shark indicators, run the installer again for Shark indicators, get everything installed, and then run NinjaTrader again, and see if that does anything. So that's a long shot there, but who knows? I have seen weird things where cleaning up Ninja's database, removed an old instance of a strategy and got rid of weird errors like that. But again, that does not happen very often. That is pretty rare that happens, but it does. And it's just one of those weird little cleaning processes that it's good to do once a year, or maybe once every 2 years or something like that. So or the more direct thing to do, the simplest way to do, and NinjaTrader does have this database management here where you can reset your database, and maybe they've improved this but I don't think it, this reset here might remove all the instances of every strategy in the database. So actually, maybe just at first, just try to do a database reset there, and see if that removes all your strategies here. So keep in mind, any Blackbird or Raven that you had associated with the chart, it's going to be deleted, unfortunately. But whereas the method I outlined, where you just uninstall, open up your workspaces, that actually, because you're not saving the workspace, I don't think that actually removes the strategy from that's associated with chart. It might, but I'm not sure. But anyway, and another alternative is you just close NinjaTrader and where is it? Database. There we go, in the DB folder, and you just delete this guy. Delete this NinjaTrader SQLite database, and that wipes your database completely, and NinjaTrader just builds a brand new database from scratch. But when you do that, now that's the nuclear option, because you do lose all of your connections, unfortunately. Now that yeah, which isn't too bad. Usually most people only have one connection there, so it's not too bad. So yeah, so you can try those. Try the uninstall method first and see if that works. So yeah, and I guess while you have Shark indicators uninstalled and you're opening your workspaces, I guess why not go ahead and go into the database management and do a reset as well. So yeah. Let's see here. All right, looks like there's another question in here, maybe. All right, yeah, so Doug's asking, what if you just remove the workspace files? Yeah, so what if you just remove these files somewhere else and then fire up NinjaTrader? Might that be effective? No. Workspaces are completely have a different purpose than the database. So, as far as I understand, I think this is still the case where workspaces do not store strategies. They only store indicators. So removing those, I don't think would, I think that would prevent NinjaTrader from cleaning its database of removed strategies. Yeah, I think. Again, NinjaTrader is, with every update, they are slowly, they change things on the back end to try and improve things. So, yeah, and they don't ever document any of this stuff either. Well, they don't give you full documentation. Like when I said previously, when I said NinjaTrader has been making improvements to its database, it's because they have given what they have documented loosely, that they did some work. They never tell you exactly what they did. They just kind of mention, hey, we did some work on the database, to improve the database, something like that. Just a general database improvement, kind of notation in their release notes there. So, yeah. Otherwise, it's really impossible to know that they did anything. So, because you never see that on the front end of a program. This is all back end stuff. Yeah. So you never know. Give that a shot. See if that helps. And also, I guess I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I'm sure there's some videos out there. But you can see a standard database file here. It starts off at 7.5 megabytes, right? Pretty small. And yeah, here's one that's 10 megabytes, and a really old one that's 11, almost 12 megabytes. So this database should be fairly small. I don't remember what the size is, but eventually when it gets too large, that really slows NinjaTrader down. The larger that database gets, that means NinjaTrader has to process more records, and that eats up time, right? The larger the database is, the longer it takes for your computer to process all the records in that database. So I think if it's 100 megabytes, that's too large. Yeah, they did change database. Actually, yeah, there you go. There's an old one, SDF. Let's see, SQLite. SDF. Actually, I think this was just an older version of the same database that they're using now, just a different extension. But yeah, I think somewhere around 70 to 100 megabytes. Once it gets that large, then you will notice an effect on your live trading. Even if you're discretionarily trading, NinjaTrader will begin to bog down because all the records here for your orders and your executions and your strategies, that's all stored in the database. When that database gets too large, it becomes slower and slower for NinjaTrader to write and read records to that database. Yeah, so just keep an eye on that. Especially if you take a trade and it seems to take forever, like NinjaTrader just bogs down for a couple of seconds, that's a good clue that your database has gotten too large. And at that point, especially if you're running a strategy, right? Raven, Blackbird, any other strategy, if it's executing on live data, even if it's executing to the SIM account, if it's executing orders on live data and NinjaTrader begins to bog down, that is, 99% of the time, that's the database is too large. And that's what this database management is for here. So yeah, this was NinjaTrader's answer to a long-running issue with NinjaTrader 7 and before. And so that's why they have this reset database, is it clears out all those historical records, and that's why your database gets too large, is it's just filled up with old historical records. So yeah, so to reduce the file size of your database, to bring that file size back down, that's what this reset database does. You can see it just deletes there, deletes those old records. All right, well, gentlemen, it's actually been more than half an hour since I started the timer, and so it's been almost like 40 minutes since the last time I had a Bloodhound question. So with that, guys, I think we must be done for the day. So yeah, we're at the 1.5 hour mark, and all right, it's just a bunch of regulars in the room. Nobody new, really. So yeah. All right, guys. Yep. So with that, I'll wrap it up here, close up shop, and yeah, you all know the drill. So if you have Blackbird questions for me, then I'll see you tomorrow in the Blackbird workshop. And of course, if you can't make it to the workshop, then you can always email your questions in, or even if you can make it to the workshop, it is nice to email your questions in ahead of time there. So yeah, that helps me out, make sure I understand your question fully, when answering it. So, yeah. All right, guys. So if I don't see you tomorrow in the workshop, then have a good weekend and enjoy the spring weather that's coming around. Starting to warm up out there. So, yeah, time to get outside and do some yard work, right? Make sure that lawnmower still works, right? Fire that sucker up. Make sure it's got oil in it and some fresh gas. So, all right, guys, have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time around. All right, bye bye.